Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
You know, Wobbles, I'm kind of mad at you.
And as a reasonable man, I'm willing to do whatever's necessary to find a peaceful solution to these problems.
Welcome to Punching Up the Movie Podcast, the podcast where two old mates discuss films that either one or both have a problem with. Today's horror fest is Joe Dante's 1981 The Howling, which I brought forward into the room, and another one that it's one of Adam's favourite films. So yeah, that's it really. Thanks everybody for listening. Pass it on to your mates if you like it. And yeah, Adam, give us a little synopsis of this film.
Well, I was going to say this is the conclusion of our unofficial Triple H trilogy that has nothing to do with wrestling. And so yeah, it's we've done Highlander, Halloween. We had a kind of uncharacteristic interruption with an episode on the Odyssey to remain current, and now it's The Howling, and it's the second film on the trot that I really like that you're taking a swing at. So the plot of The Howling, Karen White, an investigative reporter for a LA-based television station, is played by Dee Wallace, is investigating a series of murders committed by someone called Eddie the Mangler. And as the film opens, she's agreed to meet him. It's being televised live, and it's also a sting operation because the LAPD are nearby. It all goes horribly wrong, resulting in something that happens as the killer is tracked down and shot dead in a porno theater that she can't quite recall, that involves some form of transformation. So she's post-traumatized, and she's sent to a retreat run by Patrick McNee's Dr. George Wagner in the countryside on the coast called the Colony, where they're going to try and access some memories, but there's something amiss about the colony. There's howling in the night. There's strange kind of primal people in the woods, and one of which seems to sort of be very attractive to her husband who's come with her. And is there a connection with Eddie the Mangler? There seems to be, and it's basically a werewolf colony, with sort of divided loyalties amongst werewolves who want to return to their old ways and eat people, and or just be a little bit more progressive and fit in and kill cattle. And so as all of this starts to dawn on Karen and her investigative reporter friend, Terry Fisher, and her boyfriend, and it becomes more evident that there are werewolves. There are ears sprout, fangs appear, and in-camera transformations abound, and and we're all headed to some kind of fiery, quasi-apocalyptic reckoning between humans and werewolves.
That sounds loads better than the film.
Makes it sound good, doesn't it?
It does. It sound. That's why you're very good at that. I like
Makes it sound like a really good movie.
Yeah, that's the pitch, mate. That's how it gets.
Yeah, maybe I should have written it, but
yeah, I think so.
But so do you want a bit of background information, and you can just sort of chip
yes,
in
please.
And, yeah. Okay, so the Howling starts life as a novel by a guy called Gary Branda. I assume it's quite a successful novel, and its rights are picked up by Avico Embassy, a sort of modest studio who having a bit of success with horror movies. The most famous at that point being The Fog. So they produced The Fog by John Carpenter, and so they buy the rights. And there's a bit of a sort of kicking around of directors. I think it goes through sort of a couple of directors. One I think called Jack Conrad, who I looked him up. He was basically an editor who just done two very low budget movies in the 70s. He parts over creative differences. There are a couple of scripts written, and then they bring in a young gun called Joe Dante, who's sort of cut his teeth on Roger Corman, editing like montages and trailers for Roger Corman, the sort of low budget mogul. And directed a film called Hollywood Boulevard, and then Piranha. And sort of Piranha's really, I think, the thing that sort of gets him the gig. And apparently he's working on he's working at the time on a Jaws sequel called Jaws 3 People Zero that just didn't come to fruition, which is a great title. And that sort of collapses. So he's taken off it. And he doesn't really like the script very much. Not really that bothered about the novel. He likes the title and some of the ideas. And so he brings in the screenwriter that's written Piranha, who is John Sayles, who's the legendary John Sayles in independent circles, who'll go on to become one of the great, along with Jim Jarmusch, godfathers of American independent cinema in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, and still working today. But at that point, he's a jobbing screenwriter, and he's writing these sort of very witty, kind of satirical monster movies. And ironically, talking about werewolves, I've just got a hair in my mouth at the moment, so excuse me. I might be transforming. I don't. It's full moon over here, by the way, and it's literally dark outside in England. Nice. But so he brings in John Sayles. John Sayles completely writes the thing, and the thing that he brings to it is the big idea is the colony, because there's the self-help movement is really big in America, and he just wants to take a little bit of a swing at it. And and sorry, it's like, I've got it. It's gone. I think it's a cat hair rather than a wolf hair. But basically, he rewrites it, and then they start casting. And the key is the person that plays Karen White, and that's Dee Wallace. And Dee Wallace has done a lot of telly, but she's done a couple of movies. She's done The Hills Have Eyes. That's her kind of horror sort of the Stepford Wives she was in. But the thing she really makes an impression in is 10. The massive comedy with Dudley Moore and Bo Derek, and she has a sort of scene stealing sequence in that, and she gets that, and then they kind of subsequently cast the rest of the movie with people that they've worked with before, like I can never pronounce. I've got it written down. Belinda Balaski, who's a bit of a Joe Dante regular, will go on to be Christopher Stone, who's Dee Wallace's fiance, but they do a stealth audition. She recommends this actor, but then doesn't say that it's a fiance, and so they've got a married couple on set and whatnot. And then he sort of casts a lot of, because obviously Joe Dante is an enormous film buff, so it's absolutely riddled with cameos from people from genre cinema, like Kevin McCarthy. I think he's the star of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's like the head of the TV company. You've got the great John Carradine, who's sort of brought in, and he's my favorite werewolf in the film. Actually, he plays like this unreconstructed, almost like semi-homeless looking werewolf. When he turned up on set, this is the great John Carradine, who's been in The Grapes of Wrath, numerous John Ford films, and he was almost chased off the set because people thought he was an actual tramp, and then they realised who he was, and then you've got Slim Pickens, and Slim Pickens apparently the script was being written as the film was being made, sometimes and being rewritten, and once they cast him, they wrote, because it was so late in the day, they wrote for him. And he didn't know that, and and he was amazed, and he said, like, this dialogue fits me like a glove and things like that. So he's very happy. The shoot is actually quite harmonious. The big thing about this movie has to be the werewolves and the werewolf transformations, and this all rests on the shoulders of Rob Bottin. It was supposed to be Rick Baker, who at that point was really establishing himself as one of the great sort of makeup effects guys, but he's called off to make another movie about another werewolf called An American Werewolf in London. So he hands over duties to his protege, Rob Bottin. And Rob Bottin, what they want, the brief with Rob Bottin is create in-camera transformations, and their idea for the werewolves is based on old sort of medieval woodcuts of werewolves. And so these are werewolves with, that are incredibly tall, stand on their hind legs. And so Rob Bottin is a perfectionist. It's a 28-day shoot, but they lose one day just waiting for Rob Bottin to get the special effects right, and so the idea is that in the past with traditional werewolf movies, which I'm assuming we're going to talk about later, like The Wolfman and sort of Curse of the Werewolf being the two most famous examples, they just dissolve in camera, so they'll film, dissolve, apply some makeup. And with this, it's no that's no. So they use a mixture of things. They use animatronics, and it's like sort of rod puppets, mechanical effects, a lot of condoms that they inflate to get all the kind of like rippling skin effect. And initially it's just like they're just editing around a head puppet and some arm puppets, and you haven't got any kind of full and in order to get the movement, they bring in stop motion animation, kind of low budget stop motion animation genius David W. Allen. And so there's some stop motion bits where these werewolves are in a barn and a werewolf stalking Dee Wallace, and they're sort of howling at the moon at the end. They even have a flying werewolf, which are launched by air mortars. But they said they abandoned those because it looked like there were sort of trails of vapor coming out of their werewolf backsides, and it just looked ridiculous. And so once all of this is assembled, they realize that the stop motion animation doesn't gel with the rest. There's a kind of real jarring discontinuity. So they pay for it, but they abandon it. And what they need is, a man, a 7 foot, werewolf man that you see. And so they ask for more money, and Avco give them more money. And then they design a bodysuit, which they reintegrate into the original footage. The cast member I forgot to mention is Eddie the Mangler himself. I think for my money, you can disagree with this. I think perhaps the most disturbing werewolf I've seen, the most disturbing actor to play a werewolf, and it's Robert Picardo, who will be beloved to sort of millions and millions of people as playing the holographic Doctor later on in Star Trek Voyager. And if you see him in that and watch him in this, you can't believe it's the same person, because he is so disturbing. He freaked the casting director out in the audition because he stood behind whoever was reading and delivered his lines. And the line in the film where he extracts a bullet from his head and says, I'll give you a piece of my mind. He improvised on set. That wasn't a John Sayles line. He just said it as a joke, and then they kept it in the film because they really liked it. The film is released, and it's a big hit. It's 1.7 million. Let me have a look at mine. Yeah, 1.7 million, and it grosses $17.9 million, and everyone does well. And Joe Dante very gallantly credits the marketing campaign. So the way it was marketed was brilliant. He said, because he says you have the poster with the claw ripping through what seems to be the poster and a woman's face screaming. And he says, and it wasn't, apart from the title, The Howling, it wasn't necessarily heavily marketed as a werewolf film. It was marketed as a slasher movie. And then they incrementally introduced the ideas of the werewolves. And then when people saw it, what they saw was these incredible in-camera transformations. It came at a point where they all say, there hadn't been any werewolf movies for ages. That's not true. There hadn't been any decent, reasonable budget werewolf movies. And then you've got three that come along at once. So werewolves become very much part of the zeitgeist, because this is released, I think 5 months before An American Werewolf in London, which takes more money. And wins an Oscar. It wins the first ever Oscar for, I think, sort of special makeup effects. In the middle is an even bigger budget movie called Wolfen. That's the one that bombs hard. But the other two kind of set the template for werewolf movies, like bone-cracking transformations. I would say I'm going to use a technical term here: standy-uppy werewolves rather than all foury. Well, I mean, American Werewolf in London it's an all four. It's a kind of basically like it's a kind of augmented dog, isn't it? Whereas you see from then on and evermore that werewolves tend to be standing on their feet, like just enormous humanoid kind of monsters. I'm going to end with a quote from Patrick McNee because this is my sort of provocation to you to come back at it. I'll paraphrase it. He said, "This is so much more than a horror movie." So he says that in an interview, and he says this is so much more than a horror movie. So it sort of transcends the genre, elevates the werewolf film. And there's been a bit of a sort of Beatles and Rolling Stones sort of camps about American Werewolf in London and The Howling. I would say that the American Werewolf in London is the Beatles because it's a little bit more clean cut and sort of precisely produced. And The Howling is like if they were boys and you were a father with a teenage daughter, you'd probably let American Werewolf in London take them out on a date if that was a person, but you wouldn't let them anywhere near The Howling because these are the bad boys. This is the Keith Richards, kind of heroin taking, sort of Mick Jagger, kind of rampant id of rock and roll werewolves. I love it. I saw it when first time I saw it I've mentioned it before, I saw it at my mate Stivesh's house. I was aware of it. I'd seen all the pictures of the werewolves and the gore and things like that in Starlog magazine. And for a long, long time, it was like, well, this is the kind of scuzzy cousin to the more superior American Werewolf in London. But I've grown to sort of prefer it over the years, although I have to say, you can love both. I like the Beatles. I like the Rolling Stones. It's a head and heart thing. I really like An American Werewolf in London. I love it, but I really, really love The Howling. So go on, slash it to bits.
Yeah, do you know what? This is a bit of a lane punching up, really, because
Yeah.
the reason why I brought it in was I watched it last October and just found it a bit boring. Since then, obviously, I rewatched it. I watched the commentaries and I don't mind it. I think it's a well-paced, decent film. I think my problem with it was always a Beatles Stones thing. I was just much more into the Beatles than the Stones. I felt that there was like more artistic integrity to, and not that I think, oh, there's more artistic integrity to American Werewolf in London, although I think at a base level, I enjoyed the transformation that Rick Baker did in American Werewolf over the Rob Bottin Howling transformation. And those two are big like set pieces, aren't they? In both films, they do their thing, they announce themselves. I think the problem with the puffing out condoms and everything and the thing that at some point it just looks a little bit too kind of bugging out. Like there's moments where it looks a little bit comedy, whereas in American Werewolf, there's none of that. I think the design of the wolf in American Werewolf, the muzzle coming out is truly terrifying, as are all the dream sequences, the Nazi werewolves and the ghouls I think I prefer the aesthetic of American Werewolf, and having watched them again together, I think there's a lot more heart in American Werewolf, and I think that comes from the two young lads, David Norton and
Griffin Dunn.
Griffin Dunn, thank you. Their banter at the start, just before they get mashed up, it really grounds the film, and then regrounds it every time you see Griffin Dunn reappear to David Norton in various stages of decay. I don't think The Howling has that, and I think that was my really vague issue with it. That ultimately it is a dirty film. It's exactly what you described. It's scuzzy. It has it has a dirt under its fingernails that American Werewolf doesn't. But I preferred American Werewolf over The Howling. And as you say, both can exist, both can be great. I think that's where my original reticence for holding it up and then over the years, thanks to you, you introduced me to the Joe Dante Olson podcast, Movies That Made Me, which I've listened to loads of them. I think they're great. I like listening to Joe Dante. As you said, he's a massive film historian. He's got a computer-like brain when it comes to remembering sort of dates and specificities of films. That's fascinating. That's great. And also, like, I was thinking that if we're the movies that made me, I'm Joe Dante and you're Josh Olson. I was thinking that recently. Joe Dante speaks less, and Josh Olson speaks a load more. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm coming with the same kind of information that he does. Anyway. So I went back recently and watched Piranha. I went back and watched this. That was last October, and was just a little bit these films that I watched in the 1980s that I absolutely loved, and for whatever reason, over the years they've kind of diminished. My Not all of them, but on a revisit. So yeah, that's my really vague problem with The Howling. I don't really have a problem with The Howling, to be honest with you. And rewatching it again, I did appreciate it more. There's some nice set pieces in it. The David Allen stuff that you see on the Dissolve, that tiny little bit at the end, I was wondering if they had really gone for it and inserted those werewolf stop motion along with the human elements, would it have elevated the film to a kind of Evil Dead-like? Not that it needs elevating. Howling's up there. People love it. But would it have elevated it in its kind of impact? Because there's something about those plasticine-y stop motion stuff that happens in The Evil Dead that is so obviously comedic, but also sort of disturbing. And the disconnect or the difference between the stop motion and the real zombies in Evil Dead, it works. And I think it might have worked in this. You could have sort of stylized it. And I know Joe Dante said that as you said, they don't fit together. He was really didn't like the movement of the stop motion, that he thought it was so very different to the movement of the actual people, creatures, wolves. So yeah, over to you, mate. What do you reckon to any of that?
Well, I pretty much agree with all of it. Again, it's like this is going to be such a rubbish, such a neutered. But we're gonna get onto other werewolf films. One of which
Yeah,
I know
yeah, yeah. And all things
yeah,
werewolf,
that the
really.
punching up a little bit. You're definitely gonna pile down on one of my favorite werewolf films because you've
For
tipped your hat on it.
sure.
But and I'm going to sort of stand and take my licks for that because I don't think I can really defend it or really like it. But it's like, no, I agree with you. I mean, I'll just to address the stop motion thing. I think it was the right decision because I think in Evil Dead, it's a chaotic, shape-shifting world, isn't it? It's like it's a different supernatural threat. It's like the Evil Dead can take many forms, and they've already established the aesthetic with these crazy, like sort of speeded up, like roving cameras and whereas I think this is the real world plus werewolves, isn't it? So I don't think it would have worked much as I absolutely adore stop motion animation. I love it. And I love David Allen's work. I think he's kind of got a sort of really depraved quality to a lot of his stuff. Not so much in that because he's sort of working on an existing template of a werewolf. But if you look at his Full Moon stuff, it's depraved. It's like Puppet Master animations are just like really disturbing. And I like him I mean, he's dead, unfortunately, but I like him as a man, and things like that. The little footage I've seen. I kind of agree with you. I think objectively, I agree with everything that you said about American Werewolf in London. I think the transformation is better. I think, I think also because the nature of the transformations are different because there's no pain involved in the werewolves transforming, and all of the werewolves are evil. They want to be this to a greater or lesser degree. That's what they are, and there's a joy in it. There's a real kind of relish, which I like. I love Robert Picardo in this, by the way. I think he's phenomenal.
Same.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think he's one of the great I think he's probably like the great unrepentant werewolf villain. You know, there's no torment in him. He loves what he is. He just wants to show people and then rip their faces off and things like that. And I think his transformation, it's that great combination, which you get in American Werewolf in London, but it's different. You get that great combination of sort of acting fused with special effects. And whereas in what sells a transformation is David Norton's pain. The fact that he doesn't, he's in denial about what's going to happen to him, and when it happens, he's in such pain. And that was an innovation, wasn't it? That was a Rick Baker thing. This would hurt, you know, or a John Landis thing. It's like, this would hurt. If this has happened to you, your bones are just like realigning themselves, and that's going to hurt you. And I absolutely agree. It's got a lot more heart. I would add Jenny Agutter to that. You know, you say I think the love story is I've wanted to say this on record for a while. My relationship with American Werewolf in London has changed. I think my relationship has stayed the same with the Howling, because it's always been the same movie. But it's changed as I've got older with American Werewolf in London. And then when I first watched it, it was like special effects, gore, comedy. And then when I remember watching it again and thinking, oh, this is scarier than I remember. It's a lot more violent than I remember it being. And then the last two times I've watched it, the comedy hasn't really clicked as well for me in this. And I think a lot of the comedy kind of falls flat, with one brilliant exception in The Howling. I don't think they work as well on repeated viewings as comedies, because some of it seems a little bit too ad hoc to sort of John Cleese comedy, especially, you know. But what really works is the fact that it's a tragic love story, and the more I watch it, the more moved I am. Obviously by their relationship, the two friends, but by Jenny Agutter and his relationship. And I think she really sells the end of the film. It's like her acting, and you forget how tragic the ending is, because it ends on a sort of almost like a joke song, cuts in, isn't it? It's like Blue Moon cuts in, like a quicker version of it. I don't know who does that version, but the thing that you've just watched is heartbreaking, and it's her acting that sells it, you know, in amidst all the incredibly well choreographed carnage, with John Landis at the absolute peak of his powers. So I think objectively it's a better film. I like the mess of The Howling. I like the fact there's so much stuff going on, you know, that it goes from this like kind of almost like Vice Squad-esque kind of horror movie at the beginning, you know, to, you know, this slightly more gothic, you know. I like the colony of werewolves. I love the fact that there's so much going on. You know, they're just throwing so much at the screen, and most of it sticks. The guy I forgot to mention, I think one of my favorite scenes in it is what's his name? Dick. Well, you know,
the Dante,
you know what I mean?
He's in everything.
Dante's man. You know, this is Dick Miller. That's it, Dick Miller.
That's it. Yeah,
as the occult shop, the real no nonsense, almost like New York. Occult shop who they buy silver bullets from, and it's so like counterintuitive, just having this guy who looks like he's wandered in from The Sopranos, sitting down. You know, just no nonsense, just running this occult bookshop, doesn't believe half of it, kind of believes, and then just sells them some silver bullets that someone's like made and haven't picked up. And I think apparently he was really annoyed. Did you know that story when he got the role, because he'd worked with Joe Dante in Hollywood Boulevard, and apparently they reuse his name in numerous movies, because his name Walter Payton is the same name of the character in Bucket of Blood, and they use it again in Hollywood Boulevard. He's Walter Payton there, you know. And so he's because he had one day's filming and he was annoyed, and then he said subsequently, he says well, when the interview was done, I think it was like the sort of 20th anniversary of it, and he'd done 150 films at that point, and I think he'd been in all of Joe Dante's films, and he actually said it's the best thing he did. It's the favorite character he played, and watching that, I'd have loved to have seen a TV series set in that occult bookshop with him at the center of it. It would just been fantastic. I just wanted to know more about. I think that's the thing as well. You know, you love a world that, you know, you have that in An American Werewolf in London. You want to know about the Yorkshire community that have kind of hidden this werewolf, and, you know, what their relationship was with the guy who is the werewolf. There's all that. There's a world beyond the world that you're seeing, and And with this, I just wanted to know more about him and his adventures. And these are just two people that passed through his shop, and you want to know who else? What are the horrible fates have you sent them off to meet without even realizing it? So yeah, I love them both. I absolutely love them both. I agree with you. I think objectively, American Werewolf in London is almost certainly the better film. But I just love the scuzz, the mess, the eccentricity, the set pieces, the performances, the kind of veneration of old character actors. I love Slim Pickens, and I love John Carradine, and Patrick Macnee's great, and yeah, so we can. The other thing to say that I forgot to say in the introduction is how everyone benefits from this movie. Spielberg sees the Howling and casts Steve Wallace as E.T.'s mum, which is the thing that she's still most famous for. Rob Bottin goes on from this to do The Thing for John Carpenter, and that's obviously he's going sort of toe to toe with Joe Dante and the werewolf, not Joe Dante, with Rick Baker and the werewolf transformations. And Rick Baker comes off better. It is a better monster. It's a better transformation. I agree. But then he eclipses possibly anything Rick Baker's done with The Thing, and Joe Dante gets Gremlins off the back of the Howling, and and then has this incredible career throughout the 80s. He's a key component in entertaining me through my teen years, and like Gremlins, Inner Space. I didn't see The Burbs until later, and numerous other movies and things like that. So we can leave the sort of basically the sort of peace treaty we've signed between these two movies, and we can move on, because I think you watched far more than I did. We went down
Yeah, I watched loads.
to mix our natural metaphors. We went down a werewolf rabbit hole, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we can just go through. Firstly, can you just tell me, where do werewolves sit, generally speaking, in your horror movie, like sort of pantheon of monsters, or love of werewolf movies, or indifference to them, or what have you?
Yeah, I think indifference is probably the final destination for werewolves. I'm interested in them. I like the Jekyll and Hyde-ness of it all, man's animalistic nature. I enjoy that. But like anything, you've just got to clothe it interestingly. And when, like with vampires, like with the Dracula that we were talking about, if you're just doing the same thing over and over again with slightly better effects, I'm not interested. The effects seem to have eclipsed like the story. If the story of American Wolf wasn't very good and it was like a B movie, but then they had that transformation sequence, it wouldn't be remembered in the same way that it is now. So every now and again, I'll cherry pick American Werewolf in London, the werewolf novel, Christopher Buehlman, Those Across the River, the ones that are really like up there and contain depth and dimension, like anything really. Those are the ones that I remember. So I don't think like this werewolf's coming out, the Robert Eggers. After seeing Aaron Taylor Johnson in Nosferatu, how am I going to cope with the whole movie about him? I'm not sure. I think he's a decent actor, but has he jumped his own shark in a sense? And now is he going to give us these kind of stylized performances that maybe are not as interesting as he thinks they are? Who knows? We'll see. I'll probably see it. Werewolves, vampires, Frankenstein, the monsters, just whatever it is, just give me a total. Once you give me a total, then I'm into it. Otherwise, I really don't give a shit about them, to be honest with you. Like having seen all these werewolf films over time, over this last time, yeah, there's like maybe 2 or 3 that I liked out of like 12 or 13. So those are my odds.
Well, we can go back. Should we go back and just try and go through them
Yeah,
like chronologically, in terms of like literally historically
Yeah,
chronologically?
yeah,
So 3 out of 30. Right. I think I enjoyed more. There were a couple that I really didn't like. So
yeah.
yeah. I like werewolves. I just like the ferocity of them. I like the savagery of them. I
Mm,
like the design of them. I like wolves. So I like
Mm.
any movie with a wolf. I'm the opposite. If there's a wolf in a movie, it gets an extra star. I like wolves. It just doesn't matter what it is. I mean, they've got Little House on the Prairie that they've just rebooted on Netflix, which I had no interest in watching. And then I heard that there was a wolf attack in it. I thought, oh yeah, I might give it a whirl. Just tell me what episode that was in. So I don't know
Brilliant.
why. I don't know why. I like the woods as well. I think it's the fact that the woods. I like woodland horror, and they are creatures of the woods.
Yeah.
Things like that. So let's go back to it. It wasn't the first werewolf movie. I have a box set of Universal werewolf movies, and I think Werewolf of London was the first one. But effectively, the year zero of werewolf movies is interestingly directed by George Wagner, who is deliberately his name is lifted and given to Patrick Macnee. That annoys me. I think they do it a little bit more subtly, but John Landis just went crazy with it. I remember there's a film called Into the Night where all the assassins are called Cronenberg Romero. That just drives me around the bend, but takes me out of the movie. It's not that clever. Just but I thought they were a little bit more subtle here, like. Terry Fisher, that the female. I thought she was very good. By the way, Belinda Belaski, I thought was very, very good. And she's Terence Fisher, the director of Curse of the Werewolf. But let's start with like the Lon Chaney Jr. Universal werewolf movie, which I didn't rewatch actually. I was werewolfed out, but I watched it not that long ago, so I've seen it so many times it's sort of fresh in my memory. So, what did you think of the original Universal
I,
werewolf movie?
I don't know if I've ever seen it before, or if I have, I'd not remembered it. So yeah, I rewatched it. What I liked about it was the uh, how short it was. That was a bonus.
No, they're all pretty short though. That's the good thing about
Yeah.
werewolf movies. They don't muck about. They're all pretty short, I have to say. Yeah, they're all good tight 90 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, or
You don't
less.
get a 3 hour werewolf movie anywhere, I don't
No,
think.
no,
Yeah.
no. I enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I found Lon Chaney Jr. a little bit earnest as Lon Chaney Jr. and a little bit sort of one-notey, but I liked the gypsy aspect of it. Who was playing the man?
It was
The
Bela
main-
Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't he called Lugosi as well in it or something?
I can't remember.
No. Anyway, I liked all that. I liked her, the gypsy woman, that whole element to it. That anything that goes deeper into exactly what you said, like woodlands, paganism, old sort of uh, stories, that interests me. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't know that I'll be watching it again. I liked Claude Rains in it. I liked the interaction between the two of them. Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, I liked it. I love it. I just think it's classy, it's beautiful, it's gothic, it's got lots of fog. It's got that thing that Universal do brilliantly, where kind of recreating Europe on a soundstage, a kind of fairy tale Europe. Oh, no, it's Wales, isn't it? Just there's absolutely there's no I don't think you even hear a Welsh accent in it, but it's technically supposed to be Wales. I think Claude Rains is like the heart of the movie. It's got Don Amici in it. I think it's like the one of the rival suitor. He's very good. I like the mood, I like the atmosphere. I've got a soft spot for Lon Chaney. I don't think he's a very good actor. I think he's a very sad, tragic man. You know what we were saying, like during the Halloween podcast about, was it Tom Adkins, like what passes for attractive in the 70s amongst men? I always feel like, in what universe is Lon Chaney Jr. a suave ladies man? Because
Mm,
he went on to be cast as sort of, was it Lenny in the of Mice and Men, which is supposed to be his best performance. And that's kind of, but I think there's just something of the man that seeps through this sort of sad, basically was an alcoholic. His life was very tragic, and he was obviously the son of Lon Chaney Sr., who was apparently an abysmal, appalling parent, really horrible human being to him and things like that. And he's got that burden of just, like walking in his father's footsteps or whatever he might have been a man. I think he's perhaps one of the greatest actors of the silent era. Is phenomenal. And I think a lot of that, I think it's one of these things where the part fits him, and he's not a great actor, but it's just like the man and the part, and I think he does bring a sadness, that was probably in his real life. And I just like the universal style of it. And yeah, I think it's wittily written. And incidentally, it's the movie that it completely invents a lot of the werewolf lore, doesn't it? So a lot of
Mm.
the stuff that sort of that people assume is because Bram Stoker did that as well. He invented a lot of vampire lore that people assume is sort of rooted in, kind of folklore, but it isn't. It was completely made up for the novel, and this is completely made up for that. So I like it. So as we roll forward, am I right in thinking that the next one you can just tell me, the next one chronologically is Curse of the Werewolf, the Hammer one? Is that the next one? Or
Yeah,
did you watch any? Yeah.
1961.
So you didn't watch any of the Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, House of
Abbott and
Frankenstein,
Costello, none of those.
yeah, Abbott
No.
and Costello, all of the sort of Lon Chaney Jr. sort of,
He does
subsequent
look a
movies.
little bit like, and it looks a little bit like an Ewok.
What he does.
And no, as the the
Yeah.
Wolfman. And as does Dee Wallace at some point in
Oh,
the
that was
film.
deliberate. That was deliberate. Apparently, they said they
Right,
wanted
okay.
because she's fighting the transformation, and I think it does. I think she looks like a cat, and I
Right,
think it
yeah.
does look a bit. I wish they just focused on her eyes and not showed the face because that's the one bit of werewolf design that looks a bit silly, which is a shame.
Mm.
It's like right at the end of the movie. I still think they sell it because like her acting sells it. Like her final, kind of cry, of anguish or something. Um, but yeah, apparently the design of that was deliberate because it said she hadn't embraced her werewolf nature, and it sort of reflects your personality in a way. So she's fighting it, she's resisting it, she doesn't want to be evil. She knows she's,
She's an
checking out.
Ewok cat then, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
She turns
basically,
into an
yeah,
Ewok
yeah.
cat.
Oh, just while we're on the subject, we didn't mention Marsha, did we? Who, Marsha the werewolf, who is extraordinary,
Mm.
like the sexy werewolf with the
Mm.
leather waistlet who gets it on with
I was listening to a commentary with Gardner, what's his name? Gary Bradner, sorry.
yeah.
And every time Marsha came on the screen, he used to go, "Oh, there's Marsha. She's so beautiful. Oh, look at her. Oh, this is too much. I'm so." It's like some
Well, I
sort
mean,
of
as
carry
a
on.
as a teenage lad, that was a
Yeah.
big sort of, a big element of a continued interest in the movie.
Don't you
But
think
she,
she has a little bit of a Elvira type?
yeah.
That nobody mentioned that at all in any of the commentaries that I heard
And,
or
and
any of
she
the.
also and she also just to get my mandatory mention of this movie, and she reminds me a lot of the sexy witch in Conan the Barbarian. She's got that similar vibe, but I think she's very good, and it's a shame. She died, didn't she? She died of a brain tumor, like probably like was it 5 or 6 years after making that, and didn't really have much of an acting career. So I don't know much about her, and she wasn't mentioned at all, other than they just cast her in the Unleash the Beast documentary, which is where I got all my research from. Thank you for that documentary. And yeah, but I just think she was worth a nod because that's another thing that we talk about. Werewolves in their human form are sexy, aren't they? In a different way that vampires are. They are sort of very sexy and virile and kind of animalistic and things
Yeah,
mostly,
yeah. Oh,
except for Lon
I get
Chaney
it.
Jr.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so
Oliver
we said,
Reed, Curse of the
oh,
Werewolf, 1961. I think that was one of my favorite films. It was so, it felt like it was loads better than it should have been. And it has a fairy tale like element. You go into the beggar, the birth of the werewolf, the birth of Oliver Reed being a kid, and then going into, and you don't really see. And I also loved the opening credits of just his eyes and tears coming down his face, which I think is repeated possibly at the end. Um, it automatically humanizes the beast. And I think that if you can humanize the beast, it's far more interesting than
unless it's Robert
pure
Picardo.
savagery. Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah, no, but
He's
but
the
he's one of
exception.
many. But you have different sort of gradients of like werewolfness in that because I think it works because he's like the fundamentalist, isn't he? He's like the extremist of that the
Mm,
militant werewolf, and then you've got Marsha who's kind of backing him up but can integrate. And then Patrick McNee, who just wants everyone to get along, doesn't he, and not eat each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't understand, sorry, going back to it, like why Patrick McNee he wasn't a werewolf, was he?
Yeah, he was a
Or was
werewolf.
he? He was.
Yeah.
Did he
Yeah.
turn into a werewolf at all?
I think towards the end he does.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I think I was confused whether or not he
No,
was
no, no.
just
He's
looking
he is a
after these
he is a
werewolves
yeah.
or okay,
Yeah, he's a
fair enough.
werewolf. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's kind of like the alpha, but he's kind of losing his grip on the pack, basically. Because
Mm.
he wants to integrate, and he's like he wants them to eat cattle and not people. And then you've got this rebellion, haven't you?
He's Jerry
I think.
Adams, basically.
Yeah. Yes. And,
That's my joke. That's my one joke.
and Eddie is Osama bin Laden, isn't he? He's like
Yeah.
still there. He just wants to kill Americans.
Yeah.
Well, just
Yeah.
because they're there, kill anybody, And all right, Curse of the Werewolf. This is getting interesting now because I didn't like Curse of the Werewolf. I love Hammer. I love Terence Fisher. I think he's brilliant. He's made some of my favorite Hammer movies. But I just thought it was boring. I just thought it just took too long to get to the point. I tell you what I loved. I loved the prologue with was it Richard Wordsworth, the beggar. I thought that
Yeah,
bit
it
was
was
brilliant.
great. Mm.
Yeah, that bit was
Fairy
phenomenal.
tale like, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, it was like a grim fairy tale, but with like sexual assault in it. That was the thing that
Yeah.
surprised me is how sort of sexually violent that movie was. Because I remember that movie showing. They must have like chopped it down. I remember it showing like in the afternoon on television, and it's quite it's quite. I think it's one of the darkest Hammer movies I've ever seen in terms of sort of sexual violence or implied sexual, no, not even implied in some points, but it's like, I thought that bit was great. And then I thought I think once I was really looking forward to Oliver Reed and I thought he was great. I really liked him. He just
Mm.
has his styles and there's an intensity to him. If you can be like incredibly macho and slightly camp at the same time, he kind of, he does that. And, and it was his first starring role, wasn't it? So you can imagine like people seeing this guy for the first time, think, who is this guy?
He looks
And
amazing, doesn't he?
yeah,
Just
he
looks
really
amazing.
does. And yeah, and his voice and his eyes, he's brilliant. But I don't know. I felt what I praised about the Howling, I didn't like about this. I felt it was just like almost like three little short movies like mashed together, and they were just like and I think it's about 45 minutes before you actually see the werewolf. And I
Yeah.
was going, just get on with it. I want to see Oliver Reed. When we're going to get to that bit, and there was just so much sort of faffing about. I didn't even really like the color. I would say the color's always really beautiful in Hammer movies, and it just felt a bit like washed out to me. So I wasn't really on board with that one. I thought I was going to really enjoy it because I'm like a Hammer fan. But yeah. So what's next? Are we any more in the
What's
60s?
next? I
Is it The
don't.
Beast Must Die next? I'm
The
thinking
Beast Must
chronologically.
Die. 74.
Yeah, have you got
Yeah,
any before that?
I haven't got anything before 74 that I
Yeah,
watched.
The Beast
Yeah.
Must Die.
I remember that film being really scary when I was young. And but I don't remember anything about it. I just remember the title. I think I remember the poster. Um, and I haven't seen it since I was probably about 8. And
I
it's
own a
really,
copy of The Beast Must Die.
yeah, it's not a great film, really. It's not a great film.
But it's really entertaining.
It definitely has its moments of entertainment, I
We should
think.
maybe say, for those who don't know, it's a werewolf whodunit, isn't it? That's another
Yeah.
thing that we haven't talked about. Like werewolves can be good whodunits, for obvious reasons. But this is like it's almost like it's like a mix between an Agatha Christie story because there's all these people assembled in this house and a black exploitation movie because you have this leather clad. Is it Calvin Lockhart? I think he's really good in it
Mm.
actually. Yeah, Calvin Lockhart deserves to be in a better movie. In his own brain, he's in a better movie, which I think a lot of black exploitation actors are. And he looks great. He's dressed all in leather. He just looked like he's walked off the set of Shaft, and he's like a big game hunter who's brought in to basically root out from this Professor Plum, in the study sort of cast of characters, to find out. But the thing that people remember this movie for is that it's got the werewolf break in it, hasn't it? It's got a bit where if you're sitting in the cinema, they actually stop and an announcer addresses the audience and they go through each person. He goes, "Who do you think the werewolf is?" And do they count down? Then they reveal it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I can't even remember
Yeah,
who the
they do
werewolf
that.
is. Don't give it away. But I
No.
think it's ridiculous, but it's really entertaining. Calvin Lockhart's really good. You have some great horror character actors, possibly giving their worst performances. I think Peter Cushing, is he quite hammy? Is he a bit Germanic
Yeah,
in it? You get
yeah, but
Charles Gray, who I love, who's awful in it. But yeah, it's just good fun. It's like this feels like punching down. The beast must die. I think I saw it as part of the was it like the fabled, now legendary BBC Two horror double bills they used to have on Saturday nights. I think that's where I first saw it. So anything I
probably
saw there, I'm really affectionate about.
that's probably where I saw it as well, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
I don't think I was ever
Yeah,
scared by it though. Oh yeah, and the werewolf
no,
is rubbish. It's just a
yeah,
dog running through the field.
yeah,
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 it's just like, yeah, this rubbish werewolf.
yeah. The
What's
next
next?
one is Wolfen, I suppose. So, or the
Yeah.
1981 Howling, American Werewolf in London, Wolfen. You watched it for the first time, yeah?
Well, I had seen it. I'd seen it before, actually. I think no, I'd seen it for ages. I wondered if I'd watched it all the way through. I think I must have done because there was a scene at the beginning that I thought was at the end, so I thought I must have watched it. Yeah, scene where a guy gets his hand bitten off, which is quite well done, actually. You got this flying hand with a gun in it. Go on, talk to me about Wolfen.
I remember really liking Wolfen as a kid or a teenager. I don't remember much about it except that it wasn't really werewolves; it was wolves. Um, and but I
Wolves in the
haven't seen it
Bronx.
for a long time. Yeah, but I have not seen it for a long, long time. I rewatched it this time. It's like a police procedural, really, isn't it? Um, it's it's a film. Albert Finney plays a cop who is investigating these series of deaths. And it just could have been better. It wasn't bad. It almost feels like if you just trim like 10, 15 minutes out of it, the pacing would have been better. And it would have, I think I would have enjoyed it more. But it's not a bad film. There's aspects of it that I love. I loved all the wolf visual how would you describe that? What
Wolfer
you see
vision.
through the wolf. Yeah, wolfer vision. That's it. I loved all the wolfer vision stuff. I liked the idea of the wolves. It was obviously a commentary on gentrification, wasn't it? Getting rid of the old buildings, and what do we lose by getting rid of? Well, we lose basically wolves that kill you. So
Yeah, and these
it's
and
an
these
advert
buildings that are
for
ruins that are like
gentrification.
hotbeds of crime. It didn't make sense. The social
Yeah,
thesis made absolutely no
yeah,
sense
yeah. That's true.
because I hated Wolfen. I couldn't stand
Yeah,
it. It
yeah.
just was it an hour and 40 minutes or an hour and 50, and it just felt like 3 hours to me. The Wolfer vision, of which there is much, made me feel physically nauseous, and there was just something really ugly about the way it was filmed that just made me feel a little bit sick. I thought, like, I'm not sure, like, at what point Albert Finney was in his career and his struggle with drink, but he just must have had a massive odd bin spell, to pay off to do it because I don't know what he was doing in the movie, his character. And also, it's another one of these things where, like, you got another kind of, not that Albert Finney is an ugly man, but he's supposed to be quite disheveled in that. And then sort of women are falling into bed with him and I don't know, it just made me feel a little bit sick. I thought the social thesis didn't make any sense because a lot of it is about if you just destroy this environment, the wolves will come and eat the rich. But it's all right if they eat the homeless. That's okay. So I just thought it's a
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
sort of thing. They hadn't really thought it through. And I thought, hang on, this film's actually quite anti-homeless. And it's like it's all right for these wolves to like chow down on junkies and homeless people because no one misses them and no one cares. And the wolves just seem to be kind of guiltless in it all. They're just there, they're forces. You got a really weird performance from Edward James Olmos. Because they're really, that's a really funny thing is they're wearing their sort of like new age slash Native American credentials, and then they get a Latino actor to play. I mean, and they're surrounding him with like Native American character actors. They must have hated it sitting there watching. And he's brilliant, Edward James Olmos, but he's playing like the chief shaman who kind of, and it's never really clear like the extent to which he is involved or whether he's just some nutter who kind of knows what's going on, or and you have this really weird scene where he's running around with his meat and two veg hanging around, sort of just harassing Albert Finney on a beach. Just seems to walk everywhere in like really dangerous spots of New York, and like just never gets in any danger. I didn't really like any of it. I just, apart from the odd decapitation, which I thought was very good. They have a bit where a guy's head's bitten off and you just see his eyes moving. That's it. The one thing that fascinated me was the music was by, you see, the music was by, it was James Horner, who goes on to score Aliens a few years later, and it's almost the same score. So I think in his mind, he was like, this film bombed. No one saw it. I've delivered a score that is far better than the film. As no one saw it, I'll just rehash it for Aliens.
Yeah, let me tweak it.
This film deserves that score for that awful movie. I just didn't like it at all. I just really.
Tom Noonan.
I don't know if I read. I used to have the book. Interesting things about that is it was directed by Michael Wadley, who directed Woodstock. Never made another film. Those were his two movies. Written by Whitley Strieber, who became infamous for writing Communion, based on his own claim that he was sort of kidnapped and probed by, he never calls them aliens, by beings, but by aliens, basically, and then became a sort of like the David Icke of the science fiction world for a while, didn't he? He was like ridiculed. So, I think everything around the making of the film is more interesting than the film itself. So I didn't like that at all.
It was nice to see Tom Noonan in a very early role, and also
who hopefully will reappear again in our conversation. Maybe, I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows?
And
I'm nervous about that one, actually. Yeah,
the debut of Diane Venora, who's great.
Yeah.
It was like a it had like a 70s feel to it, bit scuzzy, just not really edited very well. As I say, the pacing wasn't great, but yeah, I didn't think it was shit. I don't know that I'm going to see it anytime soon. On to Late Phases, though. That was like 2014.
No, late Phases is like not that long ago. You've got Ginger Snaps before that, which I'm
yeah. I just
we don't have to do it
Snaps
chronologically now. Yeah,
go on.
Ginger
Snaps.
How many of the Ginger
Snaps? I saw 2 out of 3, and I missed the middle one. I started watching really the first one, and the middle one's really good. Did you say?
Yeah. The middle one might objectively be the best, but the third one's my favorite, which I know you're going to absolutely stomp all over in a minute. But carry on.
Let's see, what did I write? It started off well. I like the 2 girls and the general premise, but it dragged on a little too long, and I just got bored. I got bored with I just got bored. There were some moments in it, finding the solution, the antidote to werewolfness was kind of interesting, but yeah, I didn't really like it. And the Ginger Snaps 3, the Western one, I just kept thinking about how well Hellboy, the Crooked Man was made for probably a similar relative budget, and how this wasn't that. I just got a bit bored. Wasn't really into it.
Can you say what you called it in your text? Your text to me, because that was the only one you kind of
I can remember
that. Where it was about a certain sort of online shopping.
Yeah, Creatures by Temu. So yeah,
I didn't know what Temu was.
Yeah, I used that as a lot as a sort of punchline for just something that is a bit shit.
I always put pound shop something before it. That would be my equivalent. Which I obviously didn't make that up. Someone else did it, and I liked it.
Temu, it was a bit too Temu for me, to be honest with you. I did read that they'd filmed the second and the third one back to back for Ginger Snaps, and I wasn't bothered. Sorry.
No, fair enough. I liked all 3 of them. I really liked the third one because I love westerns. I thought there was a great stockade attack with werewolves, which he didn't like. The one thing that makes
Stockade
me
Kin and
laugh, I think,
Waterman.
Stockade. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna. I'm enjoying your. I'm not gonna defend it too much. There's a lot. There's a lot of tomahawks being thrown into werewolves' heads. I like that. I think Lee Perkins looks early 19th century. She has that slightly Austen-esque feel to her anyway, and she's probably a better actor than Catherine Isabel. Catherine Isabel really does look like she's been sort of dropped from Sweet Valley High or Legally Blonde as the bad
Yeah.
girl into the 18th century. Looks really anachronistic, but at that stage I don't care. I think she's great. I like her. I think she's genuinely a good actress. So I would recommend, say, something like American Mary if you want to see what she can do as an actress. That's very, very good sort of body horror film. And her work in Hannibal, she turns up as Mason Verger's sister in, I think, the second or third season of Hannibal. She's very good in that. Yeah, not gonna defend it. I like it.
I want to go back a
Yeah.
little bit briefly to 1981, Children of the Full Moon, the Hammer House of
Yes,
Horror
yes, yes, yes.
episode. That was
Hmm.
really good. Diana
Yeah.
Dawes, Christopher Casanova. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Just kind of creepy. The whole Hammer House of Horror TV show seems to be more my lane than a lot of the Hammer films. Like, I'm not a massive Hammer fan, like I used to love them back then, but every time I've revisited, I haven't been that impressed. But yeah, love Children of the Full Moon. It was creepy, it was atmospheric, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
And it has one great jump scare that always scares me, even when I know it was coming. I was watching it with my brother, and my brother doesn't scare easily about anything, and it made him jump. But I think they're all very fatalistic as well. I think the thing about the Hammer House of Horror, I was messaging one of my best mates, Matt, because he loves Hammer movies and he loves Hammer House of Horror, and he's just worked his way through them again. And one of the things that he said is like the Hammer House. Yeah, I mean, Hammer movies normally end traditionally with good triumphing over evil. Hammer House of Horror never does, except on one occasion. It's just they are very bleak. They're very fatalistic, and they're all. I think they're all set in the kind of in the 1980s as well. And this is the most sort of traditionally Hammer one in terms of it's like the only one that feels really, really gothic, I think. And I think they handle that really well. I thought it was very good. It's just very creepy, very scary. Really, really well performed by all and sundry, and the final reveal of the kind of werewolf is great. Whoever plays him, and I'd not seen him in anything before, is wonderful. It is sort of
Mm,
malevolent geniality. And almost to the point, it was one of these weird things. I talked to my brother afterwards. I says, you know what? I don't know if this says more about me, but I kind of see the way he articulated the werewolf's point of view very well. Because if they're not human, then what's the problem? It's like that's just the way it is, and it's just like I don't really see them as that evil, although they really were, yeah, let's make no mistake, they were evil, but they articulate the opposition point of view probably better than anything I've seen, to the point where I almost was on board with the werewolves rather than the humans and things. There we go.
yeah. No, that's totally fair enough. We've got to go back a bit. Silver Bullet. I saw that.
Oh, is that the one with like Gary Busey and the kid in a
Yes.
wheelchair? Yeah, based on the Stephen
Yes.
King Cycle of the Werewolf
Yes.
novels. Yeah, I didn't
Um,
watch that, but I've seen that. Yeah,
I hadn't seen it since back then. It was
yeah.
vaguely entertaining. It wasn't shit. It has got a sense of humor to it. Yeah, that's all. I don't really want to say anything
And
else
but
about
it's
that.
got a really bad looking werewolf as well. Looks like a sort of bear,
Yeah,
Barney the bear, sort of.
definitely
Yeah,
werewolves from
yeah,
less than Timu.
yeah, yeah. I know it's fun. Yeah, carry on.
Howling is a South Korean film with Song Kang-ho, which is one of the few films that I've not seen of him, which is about wolves, a murders committed by a wolf. That was pretty good, above average. Wasn't really werewolf, but it was wolf adjacent. And then we've got your favorite film, my least favorite film.
Late phases. You didn't like it?
No, I
No.
really didn't. I really didn't like it.
Oh,
I mean,
really? Oh,
yeah.
yeah. No, this is it. This is the last episode. Go on, just like attack it.
I
Go
just
on.
thought the acting was terrible. I thought Nick Damichi
Really?
was
Yeah.
one-dimensional. It felt very much like TV movie of the week sort of acting. And occasionally an actor turns up and is convincing. Ethan Embry, the late Tom Noonan again. Great, like those. I thought the werewolf looked shit. It looked like a cross between a gremlin and a critter.
They
And
did a bit, but
yeah,
yeah.
I was really not interested in it at all. I was just like,
Yeah.
what the dialogue? Oh God, it was painful to. It was probably the one that I hated the most out of all the
Oh
films, the
wow,
werewolf
yeah.
films that I've seen. Yeah,
Brilliant.
and I really wanted to like it when you said, "Oh, this is a really
Fair
good one."
enough.
I'd not even
Yeah.
heard of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sought it out, watched it, and hated it. And
Well,
you
I
like
just want to,
it
I just want to,
because
I'm not going to convince you. I just want to make a case for the audience, a counter
yeah,
case. This is another one recommended by my mate. This is like his third shout out in a row, I think, in the H's. Simon, he's got an absolute like, real nose for sniffing out what I think are great straight to video streaming movies. I really love it. I think Nick Damichi is terrific. I think he is like a throwback actor. He's like he's like Charles Bronson reincarnated in a good way. And I like the structure of it. It's basically about like a blind Vietnam veteran. I'm not sure when it's set actually. If he's a Vietnam veteran, it's probably set in the 80s, isn't it? Or it was made a few years ago, who comes to this retirement home where old people are being picked off by a werewolf and no one cares because I think it's a bear and he knows it's a werewolf, and so there's a sort of ticking clock thing like high noon, where he knows he's got this called late phase. He's got the phase of the moon to figure out who the werewolf is, and then use his military skills to kill it. Which involves another trip to a guy. I always like these trips where people go and like they have to get customized weapons, and he goes to some kind of shady gun dealer to get which I always think is a little bit short-sighted, just to get like one shotgun shell that's got packed with
yeah,
silver bullets,
yeah.
and then loads of silver bullets for his pistol, which makes a bit more sense. And I love it. I think it's really tense. I think it builds up to a fantastic, you know, werewolf siege, in a way where he's just fighting off these werewolves. I'll make it sound a little bit more cheesy and B movie than it is, although not for you. And I just think it's just a really good, modest, well acted, like tense, moving, because a lot of it's about estranged fathers and sons and things like that, because he's a bit of a kind of like shut down a-hole, isn't he? And he's got a really nice son who's just gets abuse off him, no love, and I really liked it. But we can move on unless you want to put a
That's
last
good.
kick into its
That was the
tragic.
punching up part of the
Yeah, and
the
thank you,
podcast.
thank you, Simon, for introducing that film to me, because it is one of my favorite werewolf movies.
Whew.
Probably just a little bit below the Howling, but that's fine. This is what punching up's all about. Yeah.
I think that was it for me. Was there
Oh
anything
no,
else
no,
that
no!
I
There
missed
was
that you
there was
saw?
Dog Soldiers, wasn't there?
Oh,
Did
Dog
you read?
Soldiers. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
did. I'd rewatched Dog Soldiers. Yeah, it was
yeah,
all right. I think I
yeah.
enjoyed it a lot more when it came out. It's not a bad film. It's got some nice little moments in it. I think I just kind of my attention drifted halfway through, like, not really care. Um, it was sort of, yeah, it was all right. Sean Pertwee giving his best sort of Guy Ritchie type performance. Yeah, Dog Soldiers was all right. Did you like it?
Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. I remember like not really wanting to go and see it when it came out in the cinema, and then going to see it and being really surprised at how good it was. And obviously it was the my introduction to Neil Marshall, who's had a good run until he didn't. And I thought, yeah, it was all right. I thought bits I really enjoyed, bits really annoyed me, like a lot of the kind of nuts, lad mag sort of faux soldier dialogue, all of the sort of football stuff. It just felt like it was written. It didn't feel like natural. It felt like it was written by someone trying to write tough soldier dialogue. Um, I thought some of the performances were great. I thought Kevin McKidd and Sean Pertwee were terrific. It's like this sort of, you know, two soldier mates. I thought that the woman in it was really miscast. I was talking to someone at work about it, and they agreed. The bit where like the bit where she sort of get your effing get a effing move on, soldier. So it just sounded like a posh girl.
Yeah.
Even though there's a line after that, oh, I love it when a posh girl talks dirty. It just felt like she didn't have the authority that a character. The werewolves looked great. I thought the werewolves were fantastic. They looked
Yeah.
fantastic. There was some good fights. I thought it was far too. It was just far too keen to show its references on its sleeve, and it was like riffing on Assault on Precinct 13 a lot, even to the point of utterly recreating one of the set pieces, and that kind of annoyed me. I think like almost like sort of. I don't know what, like 35 years after, we should, just don't wear your references on your sleeve. Be inspired, but just don't create something unless you're Tarantino. And even now,
then that pisses me off in Tarantino
yeah,
films,
but he doesn't do it now. I mean, in like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood isn't a series of references, is it? Really, it's like he's moved beyond that, and he's just creating original scenarios and referencing himself, and things like that. It wasn't quite as good as I thought, as I remembered it being. It was still fun. I've got one more. I watched Cursed, the Wes Craven werewolf movie. Um, and the caveat to this is it had a really troubled production. The Weinsteins interfered, and just basically kind of they were almost three versions of the movie shot. They wasted so much money on it. Before you get the one that you get, and it is pretty ropey. It feels really generic, really glossy, and it's fun. It's fun, and it's a lot more fun than Wolfen. But considering Wes Craven made it just feels really sort of generic and perfunctory, and it just seems like Kevin Williams. Well, I'm not sure. I think he wrote a version. I'm not sure they used a lot of what he wrote, but it just feels like they're just hitting all the kind of Dawson's Creek werewolf bits, even to the point where they've got Joshua Jackson in there. And it's also like one of the things I like about werewolves is I like the commitment even today to sort of practical effects, effectively men in suits augmented by a little bit of CGI. These are more or less completely CGI werewolves. Rick Baker did some stuff. They junked it apart from some of the close-ups. And CGI werewolves look absolutely atrocious. They're awful. And this is the most CGI werewolf movie of them all. And the one big takeaway, and I think she knows exactly what movie she's in, and she walks away with it, is Judy Greer, who is just like the queen scene stealer, whatever she's doing. And it's like I think it's an early Judy Greer performance, and she's phenomenal in it. She's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, yeah.
We like Judy Greer.
Yeah, we love Judy Greer. Yeah, and that's it really. I'm werewolfed out.
Yeah, I'm werewolfed out, mate. I'm not really.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've got the Eggers thing. Apparently, ancient Greece, 1200 to 500 BCE, one of the oldest werewolf stories comes from there. Lycaon was said to have served human flesh to Zeus to test whether the god was truly omniscient. As punishment, Zeus transformed Lycaon into a wolf, and the myth is where the word lycanthropy, werewolfism, comes from the Greek lykos, meaning wolf, lycaon. So that was quite interesting.
Oh,
but fuck werewolves, mate. Fuck werewolves. That's what I'm saying.
I was about to say that's a classy note to end on.
I could always cut that last bit out.
But I actually prefer your full stop there. So if you could just say that again.
Yes. Fuck werewolves.
Yeah. Vive le werewolf. And I'm really looking forward, and I'm giving Aaron Taylor Johnson the massive benefit of the doubt because I'm really looking forward to werewolf. I don't know how you pronounce it. But it's werewolf.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, until the next time, let's just sign off. And we don't know what the next one is. We never do, usually. Thank you for listening. Until the next time, peace.
Peace.
The mission has been completed.
Groovy.